Members, welcome to the No Spin News, Thursday, September 28th, 2017. Tax cuts mania. So we're trying to get to the bottom of, number one, if this is good for you, and number two, whether it's ever got a possibility to pass. So here's my take on it. As we told you yesterday, it's a simplification, first of all. There are 7 brackets now for personal income taxes, federal income taxes, and that's going to go to 3. 35% for the wealthier people, 25% in the middle, 12% for the lower end of the earning spectrum. However, they don't define, President Trump has not defined where that, what the cutoffs are going to be. So we don't know. Also don't know capital gains tax, very important. What are they going to tax you on your interest if you save money? Don't make much interest these days, but still it's symbolic. Then the second thing is that there's going to be more tax credit. So if you have children, if you're taking care of an elderly parent or relative, and a personal exemption, that's going to rise. So while poorer people are going to be taxed a little bit higher, 10 to 12%, they get a more exemption. So it's probably they're going to get a little bit of a break. Somebody like me is not going to get any break. I'll probably pay more because they want to knock out the state and local tax exemptions. And 35% is coming down from 39.5. It's a wash, or I'll pay a little bit more. So that when you hear the Democratic Party say, oh, this is welfare, that's Charles Schumer, Senator Schumer, welfare, it's a bunch of bull. All right, it's not going to be big tax cuts for individuals with assets. Now, corporations, yes. All right, that's going to go down at 20%. And that's because they want corporations to spend more money, hire more people, one and on. So Bernie Sanders, our pal, the socialist, Bernie, who just bought a big house in Vermont on Lake Champlain. Bernie, the socialist, says the tax cuts are morally repugnant because Bernie wants to take 80, 90% of wealthy people's income away from them. There is a repeal of the death tax, the estate tax on a federal level, and that it drives the Democrats crazy. So Democratic Party is going to say no because they're the party of rising taxes among the affluent. They don't want corporate tax cuts. They don't want any of that. They want income redistribution, which is what Barack Obama did. And it didn't work. The American economy grew at a terrible rate for his entire presidency. He blamed it on a recession, but after a while, come on. Now, under President Trump, things are coming up. They just revised the growth up to 3.1%. Trump wants to get it to 4%. This tax cut may get it there. But you do have a war between the Republican Party, which wants a vibrant economy, but wants people, even people like me, to keep more of their assets, okay, against the Democratic Party, which doesn't want that, wants the rich and corporations tax up to here to give the money to those who don't have very much. That's called, again, income redistribution. Okay, so will this pass? You assume all the Democratic senators, it'll pass the House like that because there's such a big Republican majority in the House. So that's a given. Whatever the final tax cut is, because it has to go through the House and the Senate, the House will pass it. Senate, 52 Republican senators. And you saw with the Obamacare repeal that 3 senators said no, Republicans. It went down. If 3 Republican senators say no, there's a good chance this tax cut won't happen. So look at the usual suspects. Susan Collins up in Maine. Ms. Collins is a Democrat, philosophically. She is a Republican senator, but philosophically, she's a Democrat. So you can't count on her. Rand Paul, I think Rand Paul would vote for a tax cut. He's crazy on the Obamacare stuff, but I think Rand Paul in Kentucky would vote for a tax cut. I do. John McCain, boy, oh boy, got a problem. He hates President Trump so much, he may not He knows this is it. He's not going to run again. And there are a couple of other mavericks who may not think that the tax cut is steep enough. You might get that on the right spectrum. So it's dicey. The odds are the Republican Party will prevail, but it's real tight. Now, President Trump thinks he's going to pick off a few Democrats. Schumer will punish them. Schumer is the Senate minority leader. Any Democrat voting for a tax cut will be punished by Schumer with the denial of campaign money, and Schumer probably run somebody against him in a primary. There'll be punitive action taken. Okay, now the question is, will the tax reform help you? I'm assuming that my audience watching these newscasts and No Spin News on the internet are fairly sophisticated in economics. I have to assume that, because if you guys weren't, you'd be watching Dancing with the Stars or something else. You wouldn't be watching this. I'm also assuming that you do have some assets. All right? So anywhere, I don't know, 50,000 to 10 million, you're in there somewhere. So will the tax reform help you, provide you with more security and power? Remember, money is power. Why? Because it gives you, the American citizen, more options. Where to live, how to help other people. And then if you get sick or something befalls you, you can protect yourself. That's what money gives you. If you're a person who makes a lot of money and you're buying 47 cars, what can I tell you? If you're a sane person, you build yourself up in a layer of protection. You can protect yourself and your family, and you can help people who need help. Okay. I want to bring in our guest, Maya McGinnis. She is the president of the Committee for Responsible Budget. All right, Ms. McGinnis, we really appreciate you taking the time to tell us whether you feel this tax reform, as general as it is going to be helpful to regular folks.
Okay. Well, there's definitely the issue that there are still so many questions that have to be filled in.
Yes, we know.
It's very difficult to go through and say this is going to help this group and not this help. So let me take a step back and say the first question is, you kind of went back and forth about talking about tax reform versus tax cuts, and they are two different things. And this whole effort started out as a real big, I think, very, very important effort to create tax reform, the purpose of which is to help grow the economy at a time when our growth is much lower than we want it to be, to help make us more competitive, and hopefully to simplify and improve the tax code. But one thing about tax reform is that it means it's actually revenue neutral. That was the commitment from the White House, where they were going to have revenue neutral tax reform. It was going to grow the economy, and that growth was going to help bring down our record levels of national debt. And the Republican leadership also committed to revenue neutral. Now we're seeing kind of that slippery slope, where it's going, it's going to be really hard to pay for revenue neutral tax reform. So let's make this more about tax cuts, less about reform. Tax cuts have the appeal. You talked about this. It can put more money in people's pockets immediately, but they also come with a massive amount of debt. And that, unfortunately, from the outlines, appears to be what we're looking at.
All right, let me stop you there.
Would add trillions of dollars to the debt.
Okay.
At a time when our debt's already at near record levels.
Let me stop you there. The theory is that if you, and this was proven under the administration of President Bush the Younger, if you stimulate the economy to the extent that there is so much job growth, that there is competition for jobs that is much higher than it is now. So salaries have to rise in order for the companies to fill the jobs. So individual workers, Americans, make more money. So even if you cut their rate, they actually pay more money because they're making more money. And as I said, that happened from the years 2000 to about 2007. There was a surge of revenue into the federal government. So that's what the Republicans are hoping for, that the proposed debt that you talk about isn't going to come about because Americans would be so much more affluent that the revenue, the gross revenue would rise and take care of at least some of that. Is that a pipe dream? Is that a pipe dream?
Well, so it's all about the amount. So let me make a distinction. Tax cuts do not pay for themselves. Tax cuts do grow the economy.
Right.
So what that means is that if we do smart tax reform, and so far the structures of this tax plan that they've laid out is a smart tax reform. The framework makes a lot of sense. It's just the fact that it blows a hole in the debt that I think is problematic. But the framework of lowering rates and focusing on corporate tax reform, it includes a lot of things that will help grow the economy. When you grow the economy, though, you grow it enough that you offset some of the costs of how much you're losing in tax dollars or revenues, but not nearly all of them. So again, there's a big difference.
All right, but I'm going
the economy
I'm going to
doesn't pay for
submit to
itself,
you.
and the numbers that we're hearing are closer to made up than they are to reality.
But that's
and the problem.
always the case. It's always made up. I'm going to submit to you that if the president of the United States, whether it's Donald Trump or anybody else, can get the economy really revved and then look at entitlement reform, then look at Medicare and Social Security and these kinds of entitlements, which is by far and away the biggest debt driver we have in this country. Now, anybody over the age of 40 can't be included in that because we have played by the rules, paid our share into these programs, and we can't be told, no, you're not going to get what we promised. But under 40, you can certainly raise ages, you can restructure how it's distributed, you can do a lot of things. And that's entitlement reform, which I assume will come sometime, although the politicians don't want any part of it, has to come, or the debt, as you mentioned, will just be unsustainable. All right, so if this tax cut comes through, 35, 25, 12, I submit that most Americans will be better off in the short term with this structure. And then you knock out all these crazy deductions except for home mortgage and charitable. So you simplify everything. It's not 1,000 pages anymore. All right. And the machine becomes more efficient. Would you agree with that?
I think it will become more efficient through the changes to the tax structure, but economic growth will come from two things. The improved tax reform, the improved efficiency helps grow the economy, but the higher levels of debt actually undermines economic growth. That's one of the problems with the debt. It is a drag on growth.
Okay, but again, think back to
finance tax reforms less growth friendly.
Think back to the entitlement reform that has to come after this.
I mean, the other piece of this is we have to look at entitlements, and you've been saying that for a long time. I've been saying that for a long time. I wish our politicians would listen to this.
Not the cowards.
And my concern is that if you only dangle goodies, this is like you can have this gift and this gift and this gift. We actually have a president who's promised not to touch Social Security and Medicare when any of us who've looked at the program know that we do have to, and we have to do that sooner rather than later.
Okay.
I would even suggest, I understand your point about protecting a lot of people politically, but I'm over 40. Don't love to admit it, but I'm over 40. Take some of my Social Security benefits, please.
We can have a voluntary. We absolutely can have a voluntary program for people like you and me. I'd give back. But look. Okay, so I just want to keep it simple. You know, I'm a simple man. So at this structure, you believe most Americans, if this is passed, would be helped in the short term as far as having more cash on hand, and they'd be better able to protect themselves. And then if the economy rises, as most people believe it will, because of the corporate tax, that people will earn more money, have more security. You believe that?
Let me qualify that. So I believe that they will have more money in their pockets in the short term, but they will also have a larger national debt, which is something we are responsible for, and will slow growth.
Okay.
I believe that we will grow the economy, but not enough to offset that higher debt, and that overall that higher debt would actually make us financially less secure.
So
Part
we
of what
have to deal
need
with
is a
the
healthy,
entitlements down the
sustaining
road.
economy, which debt is the enemy of, and that's
Okay.
why I don't want to see us grow the debt.
All right, but if the Democratic Party comes back into power, you're going to grow the debt in spades because that's what they're going to
I
do.
also thought, but I mean, how
That's
long
what
did
they're
we
going
hear
to
that the
do.
Republicans were going to be fiscally responsible.
No,
so
they
I'm a
can't
little
be.
surprised that they're going to grow the debt as much as this plan would.
Well,
I
they're
thought
they're
we
going to
could
tell
bring the
you
debt down.
they're going to tell you on the
Sorry?
back end that they're going to do reform in the spending capacity. Whether they will or not, who knows?
Well, let me point out something. The House budget has some spending cuts in it, only $200 billion, but something. The
Yeah.
Senate budget has none that they're
Yeah,
putting in
because-
reconciliation, and I'm afraid the House is going to choose that big budget-busting Senate budget instead of sticking
right.
to their spending cuts that they
But let's-
promised. I think
let's-
that's an important piece.
Let's stick on the tax cuts. Do you believe
Mm-hmm.
that the tax cuts, as I said, no problem in the House, that'll pass. In the Senate, can Donald Trump get 50 votes? He needs 50. Can he get it in the Senate, in your opinion?
I think we're going to see, I would like to say I think we're going to see tax reform. I think we're going to see tax cuts. I do think that they will pass.
So you think he'll get 50? Okay, because that's
do.
the big dig. That's
So
the big deal. Look, I'm
mean,
more
I think-
optimistic than you. I think that
You
I
think
don't know.
it's going to pay for itself.
No, not entirely. But I think that
So,
you and I both
let me-
agree, and I went to the Kennedy School of Government at Harvard with Maya, by the way. She was reminding me. I agree with you that down the line, the entitlement reform is going to happen. Because
Well,
that's
but here's
the
where I
driver.
differ with you. I'd like to
Yes.
do it now.
But
I
it's
think
not
always
possible.
doing the easy thing first and then promising to do the hard thing later doesn't work politically.
But, Maya,
We
you gotta
need
live in
our
the real
leaders to actually
world.
Make some of those choices now.
These politicians are never going to do that ever in a million years because people get scared. We appreciate you coming in, Maya. Thanks very much
Thanks
for
for having
talking
me.
to us. Sure, it's fun. Okay,
Okay,
so
take care.
I didn't know that Maya thought that it was going to get through. So that's very interesting. 50 votes he needs, Trump. And now I've said, I'm going to address this in a mail. If Trump can't get it done, he's done. And a lot of you get mad at me. Oh, you can't say Trump's done if he doesn't get tax cuts. I'll explain it again coming up. All right, NFL latest, National Football League protests, the game tonight, Chicago, Green Bay. The fans in Green Bay own the team. Did you know that? Green Bay Packers are owned by the fans. The only team that is that way. The fans are so angry in Green Bay. I'm going to tune in and see what's going to happen tonight. They'll have to play the Star Spangled Banner on CBS. But Fox says it's not going to play the Star Spangled Banner, and the game's on Sunday. It's got to come from the league. The league is scared. The league is scared because so many people, 65% according to polls, think this is a disgrace, dishonoring the flag and the anthem. Okay, so what we have here is a protest that's all over the place. So Colin Kaepernick, as we mentioned, doesn't like the police. For him, it's an anti-police protest. He's got socks with pigs as police officers. That's where he's coming from. How about the quarterback, Aaron Rodgers, for the Green Bay Packers? Aaron Rodgers says this demonstration throughout the league is about, quote, equality, unquote. Okay, Aaron, about equality. What does that mean? What does that mean? There isn't a place in the world where the population is equal. Nowhere. Because human nature dictates that those born with more intelligence, that those motivated to work harder, that those who take the extra painful steps to become skillful and educated will always have more than those who don't. So about equality, what does that mean? That's just nonsensical. Now, Aaron Rodgers seems to be a very intelligent guy. But again, this doesn't mean, what does that mean? The United States gives the most amount of people the most chance to succeed. Why do you think millions of people are trying to come here? Why? They're not trying to get into Finland. All right? I mean, it's mind-boggling how naive and ill-informed many of these athletes are. And now it's morphed into the anti-Trump thing. So we're watching it closely. We explain the big picture, why the media is whipping it up. They want Trump to be destroyed and the country to be, reorganized and all that. We explain a bigger picture. A couple of other stories that caught my eye today. House of Representatives has put aside $10 billion taxpayer dollars to build a wall on the southern border. $10 billion will get you a little bit of a wall, not much, but Trump's got $10 billion. Bo Bergdahl, the guy accused of treason, his trial starts October 23rd in Fayetteville, North Carolina. Looks like that will happen after all of these years. I know a lot of you write to me where it is. October 23rd, we will follow the Bo Bergdahl trial. Remember that President Obama traded 5 Taliban commanders for Mr. Bergdahl to get him back, and members of his unit in Afghanistan say that when he deserted, U.S. soldiers going to look for him were hurt and killed. That's the crux of the trial. O.J. Simpson could be released Monday. Do I care about O.J. Simpson? Only in the way that he got away with killing Nicole Brown Simpson and Ron Goldman. He did it. It's the only factor of the case that I care about. But he'll be out probably on Monday. And that's it. Now we have some mail, which I always enjoy. Bill@BillO'Reilly.com. Bill@BillO'Reilly.com. Or the message boards. Twitter, @BillO'Reilly. We have almost 2.5 million Twitter followers. A lot of you like Holly the Terror Dog. She's on there. It was her birthday yesterday, and she's still recovering. Okay, Donald, Loysville, Pennsylvania. Bill, the solution to the NFL anthem protest issue is simple. Don't play the anthem at NFL games. Venue no longer deserves it. That's capitulation, Donald. If we don't play the anthem and show the flag, that's surrendering to the forces of darkness, in my opinion. Ernie, Brighton, Michigan. Bill, you were spot on with your analysis regarding giving a history quiz to the football players. Colin Kaepernick wearing a Che Guevara t-shirt, praising Castro, praising Cuba's national health care, wearing socks depicting the police as pigs. Kaepernick should move to Cuba, where he'd have a one-room apartment with no air conditioning and a filthy hospital to go to. Their medical care is not that bad. I was over there, as you may know, but I don't think Colin Kaepernick really understands what the issues are. Ralph in Reno, Nevada. Bill, I wish you would not say if Donald Trump doesn't get tax cuts done, he's finished. On health care, he wanted it repealed and replaced, but he can't do that. Congress must do it. Same with the tax cut. I'm just glad he's trying. The majority of Americans do not follow politics closely, Ralph in Reno. They don't. And a president is now elected on those independent voters. That's who elects our president. If you, in 2020, are running for re-election and you don't have tax cuts to show, it's going to be tough. Very, very tough. David Doria, East Northport, New York. Insurance, can you tell me how Congress plans on allowing one to purchase medical and health insurance across state lines? They don't plan on it. That's the solution to bringing down health insurance premiums, is letting the Lizard, Geico, and all farmers and all states, State Farm, sell health insurance everywhere, just like car insurance. That's the solution. But I don't see any drive in Congress to do that because they're pinheads. Jackie Hill, Widener, Arkansas. What do you think about releasing JFK's assassination records? They're going to do that, I believe, and I want to see them. JFK assassination is a signature moment for the baby boomers, and there have been classified information kept away from the public since 1963. Let's see it. What's the downside? If the CIA or FBI is embarrassed, so be it. I want to see it. McKenna Mansell, Mitchell, South Dakota. Mr. O'Reilly, would you recommend pursuing journalism when it's so heavily biased with a false narrative to the left? I'm fascinated with politics and history, but I frequently hear you say that the media is not what it used to be. I'm assuming, McKenna, that you're very young and maybe in school and looking for a career. Instead of majoring in journalism, I would major in communications. Okay, it's almost the same thing, but not quite. Journalism has changed for the worse. You go into a newsroom, most newsrooms are ideological these days. They're not looking for the truth. And if you're on the wrong side of the ideology, you're not going to get ahead. Communications gives you a broader field to go into. Marketing, PR, teaching, a lot of different things. So that's what I would do. Gary Williams, Warminster, Pennsylvania. Reading Killing England, I've learned stuff about Washington and Jefferson I didn't know. I have a question. If we talk about a solution to our monument controversy, how do we have a dialogue if we keep talking over each other and with everyone scared to be smeared? It's a good question, Gary. The smear merchants are running wild, and if they disagree with your take on anything, say you don't want Robert E. Lee's statue to be taken down or destroyed, for whatever reason, then you're a bigot or a racist. That's what's going on. Horrible. As for Washington and Jefferson, they're under fire in Dallas, Texas right now. It's horrible. And that's why getting the facts about our founders in Killing England is imperative to win the debate. Joe Yared, Hopkins, Minnesota. I pre-ordered Killing England the moment it was available on Amazon. Hands down my favorite killing book. Thank you very much, Joe. As I was reading, however, I couldn't help but wonder about your research. How did you discover in such meticulous detail how Washington, Jefferson, and Franklin acted in each moment? That's Martin Dugard, the best researcher on the planet. The guy goes, here's a secret to our killing research. We go to sources who were there, actually there, at Valley Forge, Yorktown, Philadelphia, and the Constitutional Convention, because most of these men and women wrote letters on the spot. We get them. They're available now. With the if you research it well, you can get Bunker Hill. You can get all of this stuff. You can get old newspaper accounts on the spot. That's what Dugard does. And then he funnels it to me, and I weave the storyline. So that's why these books are taken off. And, you know, the far left who wants to destroy me and all of that, today O'Reilly's book sales aren't what they were for the last book. Of course they weren't. I had a television show. Of course, opening up is going to take a little time. But we're number one on Amazon. Boom. Okay? So it takes a while to get it out, get the word out now. Whereas when I was on a TV show 5 nights a week, I get it out like that. Everybody knows that. These sales are extraordinary for what my circumstance is now. And they're getting bigger because people are liking the book. But these, they're pigs. I hate to use that word, but they are. And finally, Rick McClure. Bill, love your killing books. I'm not a big reader, so I get the audiobooks. And we're number one on audio. Big. I mean, nobody close to us on audio, Rick. Thank you. I want to just tell you that we're working on a studio thing for next week. I don't have it locked down entirely now because it's a little complicated. I'm not going to bore you. But I'm trying to get into the studio at least a couple of days a week so we can have satellites and things like that. We have so many surging to become premium members at BillO'Reilly.com that we know you guys like this format. We know you like it. We want to expand it a little, make it bigger. But I don't want to make a mistake and not do it the right way. But very big possibility we'll be in the studio at least once next week. And we'll try it out. We'll see what you think. But we are expanding. And it's all because of you guys. And if you re-up your premium membership, not only you get a free copy of Killing England or any of my books, but you get 50% off if you re-up any book. So you get a free book and 50% off another book. Come on, we're handing you the membership. You know that because we want you to have it. Word of the day, bringing it back. When writing to BillO'Reilly.com, do not be a blatherskite. See you tomorrow.